Hello and welcome to Module 6. We are going to focus on chapters 11 and 12 in this module. Chapter 11 is going to be kind of just a brief rundown of it. There is no quiz or written assignment for this chapter, but I still wanted to touch upon a few important things. It is important to know the effectiveness of various approaches that you might be using as a professional. It helps to see if there's any validity with what you're doing in that particular practice. Evidence-based practice has been increasing in importance in more recent years. And this chapter looks more at that in regards to solution-focused interviewing. So there were some success rates of various studies of solution building approaches that your author talks about. The first one was a study from 1988 to 1990 at Brief Family Therapy Center. It did not say how many people were served, but it did say that 66% of the people that were in the study met their goal, plus another 15% made significant improvement in 4.6 sessions average. So that's a total of 80% improved using solution-focused therapy. The Brief Family Therapy Center also did another study from 1992 to 1993 that involved 275 people. They used a few different scaling questions of whether or not the problem was solved. They did a 7 to 9 month follow-up and also assessed whether treatment goals were met or not met. And if they weren't met, was there any progress made towards that goal? The results came in at an average of 2 sessions, which is very short, using solution-focused therapy, and that 74% improved during treatment, and at the follow-up, the 7 to 9 month follow-up, 77%, which is compared with a 66% improvement for problem-focused approaches. So just throwing that out there for that particular study. And then the last study that your text talks about was Stockholm recidivism rates of prisoners using a severe population, experimental and control groups. At 12 months post-release, 53% recidivism versus 76% in the control group, which is a difference of 23 points. And then again, at 16 months, it was 60 versus 86%, which is a difference of 26 points. In addition, repeat offenses were less serious. So the question is, do these studies prove the effectiveness of solution-focused therapy? No, they do not. We obviously need more evidence to be able, more studies, different populations, different things like that to be able to prove that. But, it still is showing that it may be beneficial to still use, and it can be done in a shorter amount of sessions as well than most other methods. So that was something important I wanted to point out for you. We're going to talk a little bit about values too, and assumption, or your own assumptions and biases as well. So of value from other approaches besides solution-focused therapy, you typically want to examine your own assumptions and biases. You want to relate to clients in a sensitive way and based on knowledge of their cultural diversity. So from your textbook, some important things from this chapter are respecting human dignity. Every person deserves to be valued and treated fairly. And, this is how you relate to your clients. Another important point is individualizing services. Not all clients are going to be the same. Most clients will not be the same. They may have similar stories or circumstances, but you want to treat each client differently. So individualize the treatment that you're providing, case-by-case basis. Another one is fostering client vision. Don't raise false hopes for your clients. Don't be unrealistic. If it's not going to happen, that's not something that you really want to focus on. You want to offer a vision of change that is possible for your client, so that you can work with them to kind of build their own strengths and work towards their goals. You also, kind of repeating myself, you want to build on strengths. We've talked about that enough. You're also going to encourage client participation. It's the client who's in charge of their treatment and making the changes. Help clients help themselves. That is the point of all of this. You're also going to maximize self-determination. You want to encourage your clients to take responsibility for their own lives. Fostering transferability is another one, taking what they have learned and applying the skills. And probably one of the hardest ones, in my opinion, to do. Another one, maximizing client empowerment, helping people gain the power needed to change their lives and making them feel good about it and making sure that they're able to do that. Another one is protecting confidentiality. This is very, very important. You want your client to feel like they can trust you and trust the process. So maintaining confidentiality is very important. You want to make it a safe place to be able to treat them. Promoting normalization. I like to call this leveling the playing field. You want to make it seem not so drastic, whatever their problem is, and helping them not feel like they're isolated or like they're living by a label. That has always been an important one to me too. Another one is monitoring change. You constantly want to keep checking in and evaluating. Things are always changing, so you want to keep making sure that you're checking in and checking on them. Cultural diversity is one aspect of enormous differences among people. No matter how much you know about a culture, from whether your own experience, through knowledge, reading, whatever, you cannot assume that you know everything about a particular client. You never want to assume something. Each client is composed of several dimensions of diversity, which might include class, race, ethnicity, culture, gender, physical ability or disability, sexual orientation, and religion. Just some things to kind of keep in mind when you're working with, your clients. Your clients are diverse. The second part of this chapter talks about values. So values, I think, are very important for you, as I mentioned before, to be able to kind of examine your own assumptions and biases. You want to know what your values are. And in the second discussion board, you're going to actually do a value discussion. So I like to have people assess their own values. It provides the criteria against which we evaluate how acceptable our work is or isn't with a client. The textbook talks about a few things, so I wanted to point them out for you and kind of how they apply to solution building. So the first value would be respecting human dignity. You want to accept your client as they are, non-judgmental. We don't want to be judgmental of our clients. Solution building works within the client's frame of reference. You've heard me mention that before. You're accepting the client's perception of whatever their situation is, and you're not challenging or confronting their perceptions. Another thing to keep in mind is individualizing service, as we mentioned before, case-by-case basis, working with your clients where they are. This also honors the individuality of each client and customizes the treatment that they're getting. Also, the not knowing standpoint is really good at working on individualizing service for the client, because you're working off of their exceptions. It's not something that you can prepare or have like a textbook answer going into a session, because you're working with where they are. Another value is fostering client vision and hopefulness, not hopelessness. You want to make it realistic, as I mentioned before, not providing false hopes for your clients. The miracle question is good at encouraging what their vision of life would be like. And it also clarifies what parts of the miracle can and cannot happen. So what is realistic versus what is unrealistic. Another one is building on strengths. Exceptions are strengths. We want to compliment them and we want to talk about their success. We also want to encourage client participation. Do with the client, not to or for the client. So you're working together with the client. The practitioner works with client perceptions, exceptions, and strengths. Maximizing self-determination, making own choices. The client is the one who's going to identify their problem and they are going to actually build their solution. You're just helping them along in the process. The other one I mentioned was fostering transferability. Applies solutions to other problems in the client's life. Makes use of resources in the environment, their family, their friends, their church, whatever it is, you're making use of their resources. The next skill is maximizing client empowerment. We want to increase personal and political power to change their lives. This is done by formulating their own goals and using their inner strengths, and also, again, using community resources. We talked about confidentiality. the only way that we can release information is with assigned consent from our clients. Solution building does not require the client to reveal or work with painful material or talk about problems in personal detail. So that also helps kind of maintain that confidentiality for the client. Another skill is promoting normalization. Helps all clients, regardless of their ability or disability, to lead as much of a normal life as possible. Again, emphasizing on successes and strengths is how solution building does that. And lastly, monitoring change. As we said, that things are always changing, so you want to constantly, be monitoring change. The practitioner must continually evaluate change and take steps if the change is not occurring. Scaling questions, that's how that comes in with solution building. So constantly when we're using scaling questions, we're constantly assessing to see if things have changed or not changed. Okay, so I hope that lecture was helpful to kind of go over those two chapters, and just provide a little bit more insight. Like I said, no quiz or anything, but there is a written assignment and hopefully it'll help with the discussion board questions as well. Thank you.